Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and, of course, your existential Mr. Rogers, who is not beyond a technical snafu or two, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am Robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode number 711. I think it's 711. Oh, thank heaven. Maybe yesterday was 711. I forget. But it's either 711 or 712. Either way, it's great to be here. Today is a day in my youth that I will never forget. June 23rd, 1976. I know many of you did not even exist at that time, but I'll tell you, I was 9. I was a newly minted 9-year-old. I'd been 9 for a little more than a month. And this day was a huge day for me. It was a Friday. And it was the day that Logan's Run opened. The movie Logan's Run, the 1976 film Logan's Run, directed by the time thought, a world without older people would not necessarily be better, he says. In the book, society starts breaking down. Things are in disrepair because no one is there to teach the youth. What was supposed to be a utopia becomes a dystopia as a result. Technology alone can't solve every problem. Only people can do that. But as far as the political climate and so on, I think we have a lot more work ahead of us. The politics in the series is a subcurrent, not a main point, but the trends toward a sort of totalitarian vision became closer with President Donald Trump in office. He was terrible. He misused his office and the technologies we have available to spread a dark message, one at odds with our novel's subtexts and intentions. York could not help but wonder about what the actual future would be like while working on the project, but he did not allow himself to get swept up in his own worries or excitement. There were shades of anticipation of the future to come, such as computers beginning to happen, he says. Filming began in Dallas in these huge malls, which indeed anticipated the malling of America. It anticipated a lot of trends like cosmetic surgery and instant new you. But there was this future with a trade-off. You enjoyed yourself unbelievably. You indulged, you had everything you could wish for, but you have to check out at 30. So for a lot of young people, I think it totally freaked them out. The production of Logan's Run was a massive undertaking. York notes the picture was packed with grand, groundbreaking special effects a year before Star Wars and a lot of physical action. Dangerous physical action, such as when Logan and Jenny are swept away by a massive rush of water breaking through a wall. The scene is hard to watch, with the actor and actress violently pulled off their feet and washed down a hallway. It was pretty scary, York says of the stunt. That was a whole tank load worth of water. If we did something really dangerous, stuntmen and women would take over, but we tried to do as much as we could. I've always been macho and stupid. The Logan actor also says there was another scary moment involving a fall. One time, one of the runners had to fall from the top floor in this mall. The crew laid out boxes and mattresses, and the stuntman just missed it, the actor recalls. It was terrifying to watch. The stuntman was okay, noting he carried on. Of course, these space-age weapons were also a pain. The guns the Sandmen wielded worked on a gas cartridge, and sometimes the cartridge wouldn't fire, and it ruined a whole take, he says, sounding a bit irritated still. Nolan contends that if the reboot, stuck in development hell at Warner Brothers with Hunger Games screenwriter Peter Craig picked to pen the script, ever becomes a reality, he would like it to be darker, more in line with the tone of the novel, in which Last Day was actually at the age of 21. That is correct. In the Logan's Run novel, you don't die at 30, you die at 21. I'm not a fan of the idea that Logan should be female, Nolan says, mainly because Logan's story is his story. If there's another story, then that could be in a TV episode or something, but it would not be Logan's story. That would be a different character. Just changing it to a woman to be fashionable doesn't work, and George told me he felt the same way. Plus, Nolan says there'll never be another York or Agater. They make the movie, the author says. Without them, it has no real heart. The TV series cast, I felt, had no real chemistry. I did work on the show, but I could see it wasn't going to come together, and it didn't. When I first saw the film, I was amazed and pleased. I'd visited the set a few times, although George never did. As the years went on, I felt that it was a good popcorn film, but was lacking the subtext we put into the novel. That said, it made our careers, so George and I were pleased that it got made. George was always tougher on the movie than I was. Over the years, I came over more to his side about it, which is why I'd like to see it remade with current technology. Also, I think it would be a really good streaming series like Westworld. As for York, Logan's Run is near and dear to his heart. Among all his many well-known works, including the immensely popular Austin Powers series, it is the 1976 sci-fi classic that has elicited the most reaction from fans. That notion delights the actor to no end. Forever afterward, people would come up to me and say, "There's one movie of yours that really freaked me out," and I would say, "I know, don't tell me, Logan's Run." And then I would ask them why. Most said it was the idea of getting everything you want, but then having to leave just as you were coming into your prime. It touched a lot of people. Well, there you go. I can't believe it. I mean, this was a film that really shaped me as an imagination connoisseur. It's a movie I've always loved. Now, even I admit, when you go back and you watch it now, it feels like it's rather dated, but I still love it. I all the themes and the issues. I mean, they're themes that have been recycled time and time again in science fiction literature, and we're seeing elements of that on a lot of. It certainly was. It led the way. I mean, a lot of people understand the concepts that are presented to us in modern science fiction because they grew up watching Logan's Run. So it's something for me that, man, it means a lot. It really shaped me. I had a Logan's Run poster on my wall. I still listen to the Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack, which I think is one of his best scores. I really love it. The combination of great symphonic pieces and electronic music is, in fact, very, very cool. So, it has a special place in my heart. And to know that it's 45 years old today seems insane to me. But, of course, that is exactly how old it is. And, gosh, yeah, Logan's Run. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's probably streaming. Certainly watch it in widescreen because it's a big widescreen. It's big widescreen sci-fi epic. I'd be curious to hear what any of you think about Logan's Run, what you have to say. So let's see what you guys have to say. Cookie Madison writes in. Cookie Madison says, "Dear Rob, I discovered the Post-Geek Singularity only recently and have been really enjoying your thoughts on movies and the business of show. I imagine that you and I are roughly the same age, and perhaps that is why I tend to agree with many of your insights into why something works or why it doesn't. Even when I don't agree, I can see that your ideas are intelligent and passionate. I also have a passion for movies, a passion that was passed on to me from my parents. Through them, I developed a deep love of the early Hollywood classics of their generation, and over the years, that passion grew and developed into a love of film of all types and time periods. I was watching your Midnighter session tonight and was taken aback by how much vitriol there was toward actors in so many of the live comments. There really seems to be an anti-Hollywood and anti-actor vibe in the world at the moment. As someone who's spent a lot of time around actors over the past 20 years, I'm a little saddened by this attitude. In a way, I can understand some of this feeling. It is not uncommon these days for some actors to use their social media to lecture and pontificate, and that is annoying. Nobody likes being lectured to, especially by someone who doesn't actually seem to know what they're talking about. It usually comes across as arrogant and pretentious. I love Frances McDormand. She's an amazingly talented actor, but it was cringe-inducing to watch her howling. However, I believe that a lot of the disrespect people give actors is because they don't really understand what it is actors do. There seems to be this idea among many people that all actors do is play pretend, and it's just saying words, and therefore something anyone can do. Of course, anyone does have the potential to become an actor, just like they have the potential to become a carpenter or a mechanic. And, just like those trades, there's a set of tools and skills one has to learn in order to protect your craft, or perfect your craft. An actor who learns their craft doesn't automatically deserve more respect, but neither do they deserve any less. Nobody would expect to just walk into a garage and start working on engines because they like cars. Nobody would expect to just pick up tools for the first time and create a beautiful piece of furniture. Yet there's this perception that anyone can walk onto a stage or in front of a camera and be able to thrill and enthrall an audience. To me, it's the same type of stillness as someone looking at a masterpiece of abstract art and saying, my 6-year-old could do something better than that. All you're doing is exposing your own ignorance, in my opinion. It seems to me that all of us in the singularity have the great love of film, and that's why we're here. Let's not forget that a big part of the reason you love a film, whatever it may be, is because of the actors who helped you not only bring that story to life, but who also move you and inspire you. To me, that is an amazing power, and if it means occasionally having to cringe at someone's overinflated ego, well, that seems like a small price to pay in my opinion. Thanks for listening, Rob. I wish you continued success. That is from Cookie Madison. Well, Cookie, I'm with you. I mean, there is nothing better than to see a great actor bringing a character to life, somebody that you absolutely believe in. They're channeling another person. It is a skill set not many people have, and it's really hard to do, especially imagine if you're trying to act when there's a camera this close to your face and you have to not see it. I mean, it's an amazing way to live, and it's an amazing skill they have, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think there is a thought. I think our entire society now is we feel that who are you to lecture us? You know, you're the rich Hollywood elite, although most people who are actors have had to work very, very hard and deal with more personal and professional rejection than you probably can imagine in your own life in order to get where they are. It's a tough call, but I think that nobody wants to necessarily be lectured, but I think actors are asked to play people from all walks of life. I think actors also have a certain inherent empathy about the human existence and about different kinds of people because they're playing all those different kinds of roles. So actors, I think a lot about being human beings and what's right and what's wrong. So I would never say, well, just because you're making a lot of money, now that you finally become a rich movie star, so I've heard your name. For all those people, there's 10,000 others who are toiling in obscurity, wanting to get roles. So I have to agree with Cookie here. I think great actors and are definitely people to be treasured, and of course they bring us so much. They bring us so much joy. But man, it's hard. It's hard to be an actor, and I'm not saying that it's harder than any other job, but you know it has the extra added benefit or hindrance of putting your face out there in front of the entire planet Earth, and people can think about whatever they want when it comes to you. So yeah, that's a tough one. But Cookie, I love actors, and I love hearing from people who like actors. So thank you for writing in. I think you make really good points there. Thanks for the letter. Daniel Hernandez in the house right now. Hello, good sir. I hope you're doing well. I have two things I want to discuss with you. One, I think it's becoming more and more clear that the entertainment industry needs to change in terms of IP. We've all heard many people say this, but it's true. For any starting IP or currently popular running shows, need a Kevin Feige and hire a crew who are passionate about the franchise. This seems like common sense by now, but oh well. This thought came to me when you were talking about Star Trek some time ago. Okay, the second topic I wanted your opinion on was a movie that is a repeat viewing at my place, and that's the movie The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. Maybe I live under a rock or something, but this movie needs more love. I never hear anybody talk about it. This movie is just amazing. I truly love it. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Well, Daniel, I agree with you. I really like The Nice Guys, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think those movies just get better and better the more times you see them. And I really enjoy Shane Black's The Nice Guys. I thought it was really, really good. In terms of franchises, I think we've talked so much on this show. Hopefully the people that run franchises love those franchises. Why you would hire someone who doesn't love the franchises, I don't really know. This letter comes from Gene. Hi, Rob. How are you? Good, I hope. Dig the haircut. I just listened to Robservations 706, where you discussed displeasure over the fate of Manifest's cancellation from NBC. I'm sorry, bro. That sucks. I haven't seen the show yet, but I do know of another with an impossible premise that not only worked, but is the opinion of many that it's one of the greatest of all time. Have you watched The Leftovers on HBO, created by Tom Perrotta and Damon Lindelof? Oh, yes, I have, and I've read the novel that it's based on. Here's the elevator pitch. 2% of the world's population suddenly and without warning vanishes in what is called as the departure. The story begins 3 years later as American society, everyday and extraordinary people alike, grapple with the ever-changing existential crisis. Police Chief Kevin Garvey, played by Justin Theroux, and grieving widow Nora Durst, played by Carrie Coon, are front and center. I don't believe I'd be the first to say this, but holy shit, what an amazingly attractive couple. Not only do I buy their on-screen chemistry, but seeing them together makes me want to run to Pound Town, baby. Yeah! The show is only 3 seasons long, yet it tells a complete story and never overstays its welcome. Each one has their own feel and setting, making them unique to themselves, yet tied together as a cohesive whole. It has philosophy, science fiction, drama. It gets meta. It gets weird. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and the characters are so well written, you will love them. As you would say, Rob, peak verisimilitude. Screw this, it's been long enough. I'm going to start the show over again right now. It's just that goddamn good. Thank you for reading my letter. Gene, don't forget the guilty remnant. I always like that. You know, I had a love-hate relationship with The Leftovers because the book doesn't really explain what happened, and it does have an impossible premise, and I think when it is solved, and I didn't buy it, and I also had problems with the fact that, okay, if you have what is a supernatural event, unexplained event, where 2% of the world's population disappears, which means people lost loved ones. You had one in Carrie Coon's character's case, I believe it's all her entire family, her kids and her husband, disappeared in front of her, like Thanos' snap. And there's other weird things that start going on, like if the sheriff's father starts talking to entities in his mind that seemingly know stuff. Well, why don't you, as the sheriff, ever sit your father down and go, may I speak to the entities in your head? And sit down and ask them direct pointed questions, but he never does. So there's all kinds of things that I thought The Leftovers was good. I enjoyed it. I liked the final season. I never loved The Leftovers because I never thought that the characters and the writing treated what was going on with enough, you know, there's something really weird going on. Look, 2% of the world's population up and vanished. If that isn't weird enough, I don't know what is. So yeah, I mean, it was a crazy, wacky show, but I liked it. I mean, I definitely think it's worth watching. It's definitely thought-provoking. And if nothing else, that alone makes it worth watching. So, yeah. This one comes from Moses Felix Sampson. It's a question regarding the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseur Film Festival. Hello, Rob. I've just finished scoring my little film. I'd like to send it your way from Creation BMO 1990. Well, you can, but the film festival's over, and we're going to announce the winners upcoming here soon, I think in 2 weeks. And that should be exciting. But you can send it to me. I'll definitely get around to watching it at some point. I'm very curious to see what somebody comes up with. Calvin Bowles, Braxton Bowles' dad, writes in and says, Dear Rob, I listened to you many times talk about what showrunners and creators got wrong with doing Star Trek and Star Wars. So for fun, I'm giving you an assignment. And I feel what you will choose to do will be a lesson to them on how to do a show right. I have picked an obscure IP that does have a small fan base. So you have been hired to work as a showrunner for a new Lassie TV show. The studio is interested only in the merchandising, but they say you can do whatever you want. I want to hear the steps you would take in picking who you would write and direct, what qualifications you would ask for, and what you would ask them to do in creating the show. Also, what would you do in preparing for it? Well, Calvin, I'm going to have to get back to you on this because I'd have to think about it. You know, there was Lassie on when I was a kid. There's been other syndicated Lassie programs on. I'd need to delve into the franchise and find out what makes Lassie Lassie. Because I don't know, but I'm definitely going to do that. I think that's a good. Actually, that'll be an interesting. I could do a whole show on that. If I were the showrunner of the new Lassie series, people would say like, "What Lassie series?" I'd be like, "Yeah, exactly." That's a great idea, Calvin. I actually really like that idea a lot. Our friend Electron Star Collapse is here. Don't let the stars collapse on you. Hail, Viceroy and the Post-Geek Singularity. I've come to the decision that I cannot watch any more modern Star Trek. I saw the first 2 episodes of Discovery and Lower Decks. Lower Decks insulted my regard for Starfleet officers, and Discovery insulted my intelligence. But I challenged myself to go the distance with Star Trek Picard. But following the way of absolute candor, I must say that I have failed in that way as well. I watched the first 3 episodes with full attention and without major interruption. However, that lack of interruption didn't come without me clenching my head several times over the illogical events that were taking place. I worked through episodes 4 and 5 with several stops because both my interest and patience had been depleted by this point. After stopping about 5 minutes into episode 6, I realized I wasn't going to make it to the end of the season this way, so I loaded up a video game on the side, pausing and rewinding the show if I realized my attention was too divided to pick up what was happening. I was only able to complete season 1 of Picard this way and about half the game, The Guardian Legend, in the process. As you may be guessing by now, my opinion of this show is quite low. If you divorce the Star Trek elements from this show, you end up with a mediocre sci-fi action series with poorly developed philosophical analysis, unnecessary action set pieces, and a disappointingly terrible ending. The show would have been seen by a handful of the population, and if it didn't get a second season, it would have been pretty much forgotten in a couple of years. But this is a Star Trek series, or at least it tries to sell itself as such. There are decades of history and source material that come with the legacy that is Star Trek. It's not simply a brand where you just say, there's Jean-Luc Picard doing all of his Picard things, and expect those of us who have followed the shows for decades to just blindly accept the radical changes in the universe. So being that is to be measured as a Star Trek series, then I can only describe it without invoking my suppressed, informal, and vulgar country language must be unbelievably disgusting and disgraceful. I've said repeatedly leading up to this letter that watching the show made my head hurt, and that wasn't hyperbole. Even with divided attention, when the show was finished, it had a strange cognitive effect on the only one other show has done for me. For reference, the other show is called Wondershosen, which was an adult parody of I loved Wondershosen, which was an adult parody of children's education television like Sesame Street, which was purposefully offensive and grotesque. Watching 2 episodes in a row would make me feel like I lost brain cells and stunt my vocabulary for the next hour. Maybe that's why Picard did this effect on me, because it feels like a purposely offensive adult parody of TNG, without the great sex. Whatever the reason, it's an undesired sensation, and I'm done subjecting myself to that kind of mental torture. My biggest disappointment with Picard is that this was possibly the greatest missed opportunity in the history of Star Trek production. You had Patrick Stewart back to play Picard, you have concepts that could have made for spectacular Star Trek, and you had fan intrigue. The synth attack on the Martian shipyard does give us opportunities. Picard's dreams of Data could have been some sort of telepathic manipulation to get him started on his journey. You had Romulans harvesting Borg technology. Even the subterfuge of Commander O could have made for some great conflict, where the utopian society we have known is challenged to be destabilized from the inside, but it seemed like any time there was a promising setup, there would be some off-the-wall explanation for it, if there was even an explanation given. As the story progresses, the Star Trek veneer begins to peel away more, showing a complete misunderstanding of history and characters. A galactic treaty to ban synths? Do you perhaps mean a Federation-wide treaty? Then there is the doppelganger of Jean-Luc Picard, and I'm not talking about the Golem. When did Picard become such a snarky asshole? When did he learn to gain such great affection for children? When did he stop taking advice from the people around him and dive headfirst into danger without any semblance of a plan? When did Picard simply make demands without first trying to reason with his conversational opponent? And I understand the bad trope that Starfleet admirals are either evil or performing unethical experiments, but it doesn't make any sense while Starfleet is so bipolar in their decision-making. Then there were all the plot contrivances that aren't necessarily related to Star Trek itself. A single neuron can be used to reconstruct Data and all of his memories and even create a synthetic species. That's worse than using a screw to reconstruct a nuclear reactor. The writers effectively have asked me to accept the idea that you can rebuild an entire destroyed hard drive from a single cluster of a single sector of a hard drive. Agnes's murder of Bruce Maddox served no real purpose except to delay the story progression and to get rid of that character. How exactly do you artificially move 8 stars into synchronous orbit around a single planet? How can flowers of any size survive in the cold emptiness of space? How can any device that doesn't connect to the brain directly be controlled by thought, let alone something so powerful as a thought-controlled device be able to reconstitute matter and be able to create illusions of people or ships? Nah, forget it. I don't want to know the answers to these questions because they can only be answered by more nonsense. I mentioned earlier that the show had poorly developed philosophical analysis. From right at the beginning, we're supposed to look at two ideas, first being the same asked in the measure of man. What is a real person? And the second being the idea of facing a person's own mortality. This was meant to culminate in our acceptance of Gollum Picard at the end of being a real person, too, and the finding of sadness of losing Data the second time with the erasure of his program, as he is also a real person seeking mortality. If these ideas weren't already dealt with previously on Star Trek only by much better writers and much more intelligently, maybe I would have felt differently about the themes. It's definitely supposed to reaffirm life throughout the series, as Rios can be seen reading Tragic Sense of Life, and a quote from that book states, "From whatever side of the matter is regarded, it's always found that reason confronts our longing for personal immortality and contradicts it. And the truth is, in all strictness, that reason is the enemy of life. I think they got the wrong lessons from this book because reason is the enemy of this series. I could go on and on about the problems this show has. I could tear down this show on an episode-by-episode basis, but there are more capable people and with better memories that can do this. The bottom line here is that you have no connection to Star Trek. You might get some enjoyment out of it, but you're going to get a bit of whiplash from the personality changes if you try and watch TNG. If you do have a legacy appreciation for Star Trek, accepting Patrick Stewart's portrayal of Picard as Jean-Luc in the series will probably serve to sour your appreciation of the captain of the Enterprise. The entire time I just felt like I could have written better while still trying to keep the edgy nature Kurtzman wants from his show. What if the reason the Federation was acting like a bunch of asshats is because the parasites from Conspiracy have silently invaded Earth and are taking control of people in high command? Maybe they fear synths because they can't control them like they can control their biological hosts. Maybe they fear the Borg because the Borg would win control over the host body if it was assimilated. Maybe Picard has undetected nanomachines from his assimilation that attack parasites as a preventative measure lest the collective be overtaken by these creatures. The Tal Shiar are well aware of what's happening, but they know they can't simply tell the human that the people are being controlled because who would believe them? Meanwhile, Commodore O is pretending to still be on the side of the Romulans, but has been infected herself and is trying to steer the Borg reclamation project into a form of research to allow the parasites to control the Borg, but backfires in the end as it leads to the discovery of a way to safely remove parasites from organic hosts. Picard is brought into the story by a telepathic device that is manipulating his dreams, trying to warn him of the dangers of going forward, and giving him a strange idea that a pair of synths are related to Data somehow. This isn't true, but it gets Picard interested enough to explore the idea and discover the utopia being destroyed from the inside. The probe could even be performed by Bruce Maddox himself, knowing some of Picard's history and not being aware of Lal already being in the daughter of Data, but still understanding Picard's convictions about those that might allow him to confront this dilemma. What I actually expected from the end of this series, based on what we were getting, was this. Daj and Soji both had jewelry with two linked circles, as they both had half an Audi logo. So Soji and Daj were supposed to merge together into a car, and while resurrected Data stares in fascination, Picard looks over to him and turns up the radio, smiling while the lyrics play, "Get out of my dreams and into my car." Luckily, it wasn't that awful, but maybe just as pointless. I'm sorry, I think my mind is just trying to reconstruct itself after the collapse. To those who enjoy this show, honestly, please explain to me what is the appeal. I truly want to understand. However, without this knowledge yet, I can only choose to recommend others avoid this series, especially if you really loved older Star Trek. Instead, go play the Guardian Legend on the Nintendo Entertainment System. That game is loads of fun. Sorry about the length and rambling of my letter. Stay safe, everyone, and don't let the stars collapse on you, especially if they're from an artificial octenary star system. Well, what a great letter, Electron Star Collapse, and I couldn't have said it better myself. Like you, I too feel exactly the same way. Yes, I do. So, yeah, great letter. I appreciate you writing it in. Let's see. I think I'll just go to you because I was going to do a short show today. Absolutely, because we went really long on hot toys. But let's see what you're saying. Jack Wallace sends in a tip and says, you mentioned on the John Campea show today, by the way, Jack is the father of Aiden Wallace, our action figure photographer. You mentioned on the John Campea show today that you thought that Loki episode 3 felt different from the other episodes. I think that's because the episode might have taken place inside Loki's head, like Sylvie was doing with the TVA agent at the beginning of the episode. Ooh, that's an interesting theory. You know what? There might be something to that. It was a very odd episode. I don't know if it accomplished so much, but yeah, I do like the way you think. However, there could be something definitely to that. Willow sends in a tip and says, I think you once mentioned about a Star Trek story that had a Horta as a member of the crew. It's true, Ensign Narat, and he was introduced by Diane Duane. If you had a Horta on your ship, which position do you think they would be most suitable for? Well, the geologist, absolutely. You know, there is a geologist on the Enterprise, and I think Ensign Narat or any other Horta would absolutely be the geologist. Wouldn't you think? I know I would. Louis Terrazas is here. Louis says, today is the 32nd anniversary of Batman Begins. God, Rob, I could talk forever about that movie. Me and my friends in L.A. growing up, it was one of our key favorite films. This was one of the pivotal movies in my imagination connoisseurship. I've also toured the Warner lot and such. Yeah, they filmed a lot of it there. I mean, I really like Batman Returns. I do. I think it's quite interesting. I think it's quite good. I enjoy it. So, good call on that. I didn't realize, it's 32 years old today, too. It's crazy. Stub McShave says, I just rewatched Persona by Bergman. The framing and lighting of the actors are spectacular and very effective. Bergman and his DP Sven Nykvist were a powerhouse collaborating team. Which director and DP would you say are the equivalent today? Oh, man, that's hard. Man, I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody because people switch DPs around a lot. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that question. It's a great question, but I don't know. Sven Nykvist and Ingmar Bergman, they were unique. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Stubble, but it's a great question. God, now I'm going to think about it. Who might that be? Because, directors, is there a director that always works with the same DP? I got to find out. That's a good idea because Bergman, he worked almost up until he died, so he had a lot more work to show. But I don't know. That's a really good question. Benson sends in a super chat and says, Logan's run is superb. Bryan Singer rebooting. Bryan was going to. He had a previs department prevising all of his version of Logan's run on the Fox lot in Sydney, Australia when we worked on Superman Returns. So that is amazing. And I have the copy of the script that Chris McQuarrie wrote. It's very different. I really liked it. I think Bryan could actually make a great movie out of it. It's very different than the book, but it's interesting. You get a kick out of it. Darth Plato sends in a tip and says, the psychology in Logan's run is interesting. Logan clearly enjoys hunting people down with his partner. After that, he becomes the hero of the story. How does this happen to people? Christopher Browning's Ordinary Man writers about this only in reverse. Oh, that's interesting. Because I think that they believe, Logan doesn't believe once you've run, you're not the same you're not a person. So he's able to do it. But I think that there's a lot in there to unpack, but you're absolutely right. But I think that's just because he's a different kind of person. That's why he's a Sandman. That's why he was turned into one. Darth Plato says, Logan learning the truth is not unlike a sort of Damocles moment. If Logan is truly a changed man or merely willing trying to survive now, I think he's changed. I think by the end of Logan's run, he goes there to liberate the city. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't know how he's going to do it, but I think that's what he wants to do. And at the end of the movie, I mean, people are literally bowing. So, yeah. I think he's a changed man. Society's a changed man. Our own sends in a diamond super sticker. I want to thank you for that. That's very nice. So that's good. Thank you so much. Mr. Intellectual is here and says, Sir Rob, did you see that Justin Trudeau's government passed a controversial bill that aims to regulate YouTube and more social media? A measure many warn could infringe on individual speech. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I think that's bad. But I understand why they're doing it. But there's no accountability on YouTube. I mean, even in political circles, people have accountability for what they say. And there isn't any. And I think that's what they're going to try and instill into this, world of ours. And God knows we need it. I think, is it censorship? I wouldn't go that far, but it is a private platform. How they're going to regulate that, I don't know. So it'd be hard to see. Well, listen, everyone, gentle beings, kind folks. Oh, Frankie Gouge says, I loved Logan's Run. Did you like the awful TV series? Also, I'd like to reboot that. I'd like a reboot that follows the book closer. I agree. I think the book should be readapted and done that way. I absolutely would. So, but listen, everyone, I'm going to bring this quick show to a close. I want to thank everybody for being here and being with me all day long. I want to thank all my moderating staff, first of all, as always. Justin Toner's here. I guess Justin Toner, Darren Seeley, everybody. I want to thank all you for being just you. So thank you for being the great moderating staff. I want to thank all of you for sending me super chats and tips to support the channel. And remember, you can always go to the website, free of charge, theburnettwork.net, and send me a letter. And hopefully, if it's good enough, it'll be read on the air, which is exciting. Or I might just put it in the back of a comic book as a letter of comment. But thank you all for supporting the channel the way you do. It means a great deal. And I will be on the show tonight on the Midnighter, which, yes, so I will be doing that. And until then, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day.